How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, and welcome back to another video. So, patch 9.1 is very, very close. Now, some of you may be returning back to the game from a little bit of a hiatus. That's not surprising. It's been 8 months since this game has launched right now. We are absolutely due a new patch, that is for sure. But what do we want to be focusing on come patch 9.1? And I'm going to take this from the viewpoint of professions. Yes, today we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into some of the professions, see what's changed, see if there's any significant things that you should be focusing on, and how better to do this, but with the aid of a tier list. Yes, everybody loves themselves a good tier list. We've utilised this previously on the channel, but of course this was way before Shadowlands even launched, so it's time to take a little bit of a refresh of this, see which professions are going to be the big ones, which ones can make you some gold, and more importantly, how you do it. So, very first thing I want to talk about gathering. Gathering is going to be big in patch 9.1, that is relatively true. If you take a look on your auction house right now, you may be shocked by what's happened with some of the prices. Herbs and ore are going up and down like a yo-yo. The price of heavy callous hide has doubled in many cases. If you happen to play on the NA, I would hope by now the price of your lightless silk is starting to go up. Gathering and material prices are doing some absolute loop-de-loops, and what we do know in patch 9.1 is that with the addition of flying, big thing to note there, that as soon as we can start flying in the main 4 zones of Shadowlands, gathering becomes very, very potent. So, where's our miner? Our miner is definitely A tier, without question. Now, I don't even like farming. I'm not a big farmer myself. I prefer to buy my materials and craft them, but I like to keep up to date with just, what is happening, where are the best routes, how much of any given material would you expect to be able to get in a certain time frame. And with the addition of flying, both mining and equally then herbalism are going to see some serious love. The speed in which you're going to be able to pick up these materials is going to be much, much greater. You're going to be picking them up just passively on your way to, kill those rares or complete those world quests. Whatever it is that your daily activities are, there's going to be a lot more gold to be potentially made. And with the added benefit that patch 9.1 is really ramping up the quantity of materials that is needed, especially in the legendary markets. This is where I'm going to say that mining is going to do incredibly well for itself, but of course gathering, herbs, potions, everybody knows there's a huge demand for those at the beginning of the patch. So even if you're not super millionaire status in World of Warcraft right now, if you just want to make a small amount of gold to, if nothing else, pay for your game time, make the game somewhat free to play, then picking up herbalism and or mining, I would always recommend taking both over just one of them. If you're going to be out there flying, you might as well be picking up everything, right? So, the other gathering one is, of course, skinning. Now, skinning is still, I would say, a very, very good thing to have on board. Now, of course, it is only one profession. You're not min-maxing quite to the same degree as having both herbalism and mining. But if you've got skinning on a character, skinning is one of those professions that is much better with gear. We're going into a new patch. We're going to be even more geared. The default item level of even the catch-up gear in Korthia is item level 200, meaning that, it won't be too long before you're running around in item level 220, 230 gear. And when it comes to skinning, you are going to kill those mobs really fast, meaning hopefully you can get some hyper spawns on the go, and gathering some of that leather is going to be really valuable. Legendary market is still popping off. We know for a fact that the focus on the legendaries has shifted. People who were previously wanting sort of their legendaries in their helm or chest or shoulders are unlikely to want them in the same places anymore. They're going to want to redistribute their legendaries to other places. Which in turn is going to bring a huge demand from people to not only be upgrading their legendaries to higher tiers, but it's also going to mean that people are going to be re-rolling their legendaries, and they might not have the soul cinders available to go straight in with rank 5 or rank 6 legendaries. They might still be really interested in those initial ranks 1 through to 4. This is all going to aid the people out there gathering the materials. materials. So I would say that with skinning, with mining, with herbalism, the main classes that are going to be out there gathering materials, there's going to be plenty for them to do. Gathering, generally speaking, good little earner right now. Good little earner. Let's pick something that's somewhat similar in nature then. Well, let's talk leatherworking. Everybody knows that up until this point, leatherworking has been a bit of a cash cow. Both bone shatter gear and umberhide gear has been in high demand through the entirety of patch 9.0, and leatherworking is not going anywhere anytime soon. As we said previously, with everybody wanting to switch around their legendaries, I can't help but say leatherworking is still going to be S tier. Now, there is a problem with leatherworking. It's still going to be incredibly expensive to level it up, without question. People that got on board with leatherworking at the beginning of patch 9.0, they had to dump 10, 15, 20, 25 million gold into leveling up all of their skills, all of their different items up to rank 4. That price is not going anywhere anytime soon, unfortunately, but the best hope for you guys out there is that if you're doing it in peak season, when there's lots of demand for the legendaries, you should be able to craft those legendaries and, more importantly, sell them at a profit. I myself have made tens of millions of gold in patch 9.0 simply off the back of legendaries, and yeah, if we're looking at the professions from a strictly gold making perspective, leatherworking is still best in its category. I can't argue. Let's look at the other legendary ones though. Now, I know I'm focusing on legendaries a lot. We'll get to the non sort of legendary stuff as well, but let's go with blacksmithing then. Where is even blacksmithing on the list? Blacksmithing, here we go. Blacksmithing is not going to be quite as good as leatherworking. Unfortunately, with every class out there looking to switch their legendaries about, unfortunately is putting a greater preference on people pushing the legendaries to the off pieces. These are things like the neck piece, maybe the cape, maybe the ring slots, which unfortunately means blacksmithing is taking a little bit of a hit. Some of the popular ones with blacksmithing will still be popular, but there's not as much going for it as for leatherworking, so that's why it has to take a little bit of a step down. Tailoring though, tailoring does still sit pretty firmly at the top of the tree. Tailoring for the purpose of legendaries is really, really good. The initial 4 ranks of legendaries are still really nice and cheap to level up. Cheap in relative terms to the others, and we know for a fact at this point that the legendary capes are going to be very, very interesting for a lot of classes out there. Get crafting the capes if you're not already. People that got on board with capes even in 9.0 did really, really well for themselves. Tailoring is going to be another big one. Plus it's got the good opportunities at a low level gold making as well. If you can get your shrouded cloth cheap enough, there's lots of things that you can make with the cheap shrouded cloth that can then either just be straight vended if you can get your cloth cheap enough. I think if your shrouded cloth goes below 1.5 gold, you can start making items and just giving them straight to a vendor and making profit on it, which is nice. Alternatively, tailoring is one of the best professions out there for getting the enchanted materials. Now that is your soul dust and your sacred shards. You can craft basic bits of gear to then disenchant on your enchanter, and there's still loads of money in that without question. So it would be pretty sensible of me to say let's take a look at enchanting next. And enchanting as the slight downside though of that they're just not expensive enough. I know this sounds really weird, right? But the enchants are just, in my opinion at least, compared to everything else in the game, they're just too cheap. Your enchant for your gear, which is a one-time use item to boost the power of a single piece of gear, is often less than the cost of a single potion. It still feels a little bit unbalanced, it still feels a little bit broken. From a gold making perspective, there's not a lot going for enchanting, unfortunately, at the moment. It's a good, what I would consider bread and butter profession. Bread and butter in terms of the fact that you can make your enchants, you'll constantly sell them, they'll make a little bit of profit on there. It keeps things ticking over, but it's never going to make anybody rich. What should we look at next? I think we've got to talk Jewelcrafting, haven't we? We've got to talk Jewelcrafting real quick. We've been talking about legendaries up until this point. Some of you guys will probably be sick to death of hearing about legendaries at this point, but we've got to talk Jewelcrafting. Jewelcrafting is going to be massive. I can guarantee that Jewelcrafting is going to be huge in patch 9.1 for the reason that all the legendaries are switching around again. Everybody wants the Shadowghast ring. It's already proven to be the case that there are so many classes and specs out there that are going to look at getting themselves a Shadowghast ring as their legendary because they don't want that legendary power in a domination slot. They're going to look at the ring as a relatively safe way to have their legendary. It also gives people the advantage that they can still get a really good ring to drop from Mythic Plus, from the raid, whatever their main gameplay is, and it's not instantly going to replace the legendary simply because you got 2 ring slots, which is really nice. Prospectors who know their numbers are going to do really, really well with Jewelcrafting, and it is impossible for, in fact, this even goes above, this has got to go, I think this has got to go above leatherworking. Technically, we'll go left to right in expertise. I think Jewelcrafting is going to be one of, if not the most potential profitable professions, because if you know your numbers when it comes to prospecting, you know how much you should be paying for your ore to get the essences and the gems at the right price. The guys that are good at maths are going to make an absolute boatload of cash with Jewelcrafting, and I would imagine it's going to mean that ore prices are going to do loopy things, hence the miners are going to be very happy about that as well. Jewelcrafting, I think, is going to be very, very good. Let's take a look at Inscription then. Inscription, unfortunately, not got a lot going for it now. The entire Inscription class was very heavily weighted on Dark Moon decks. Of course, Dark Moon decks are not really changing. They're still item level 200 trinkets, which is going to be competitive. It's still going to be one of those things that people are going to consider picking up when they level a new character. But they're going to be superseded with bigger and better items very, very quickly. Now, that takes out a big chunk of what Inscription is good for. Inscription is getting the Vantis rune from the new raid, and it's still going to have obviously things like the contracts to fall back on, but there's limited markets for those. That's the big problem with Inscription, unfortunately. At least Enchanting, everybody is your potential customer because everybody has gear, right? Unfortunately, with Inscription, there's just not going to be enough of a market out there for it. Missives did really well in patch 9.0. And will still continue to be somewhat beneficial to craft and sell with everybody switching around their legendaries again, but I just don't think there's going to be enough profit in it to really make it super worthwhile. Have it on an alt, sure, craft some stuff on your alt, but it's probably not a main profession, main character profession anymore, unfortunately. Bit of a shame, bit of a shame. Let's go fishing and cooking. Let's do fishing and cooking as a combo. Fishing is technically a gathering profession, but I can't deny fishing is just hella boring. Fishing had the potential to be really good at the beginning of Shadowlands until they made all of the drop rates on the fish and all the rare fish not really rare. Plus, actually, the mission table gives you so many fish, it's actually unreal. Anybody that's got the mission table up and running on a couple of characters will probably be flooded with all the fish they ever need. Meaning that actually the requirements for people to go out and do fishing is pretty slim. Now, of course, the feasts do still require some stuff like that, so there's still a demand for it, but fishing's not really going to be great. If you want to just... if you want to throw on some fishing gear and cast your rod while you're watching Netflix, cool, maybe. But from a goal making perspective, it really doesn't offer a huge amount. If the prices are right and the time is right, you can probably sell the fish for a fair whack. But it's not competing with the big boys this patch, unfortunately, definitely not. Cooking, though, on the other hand, is still looking very strong. It's hard to deny that cooking is looking very strong. I would say that it's stronger than enchanting, but still not amazing because it's super seasonal and people know where they stand with cooking. There's nothing new in patch 9.1 for cooking. The same feasts are still going to be the good feasts. The same food is still going to be the good food. There's nothing really new in that regard. And so it takes a bit of a step down from what it did previously. It will be super popular in the first couple of weeks when the raid is new and all the new content is out there and people are pushing their Mythic Plus rating. People will want to make sure they have the best food buffs available, so it'll be really good at the start, but I think cooking will taper off relatively quickly. And like I said, unfortunately with cooking, there's nothing new. That's, I think, one of the big problems. There's genuinely nothing new. I mean, that's a bit of a pattern in 9.1, unfortunately. There's not a lot of new stuff for us profession goblins out there, but generally speaking, cooking's still going to be middle of the pack. It's going to do all right. Alchemy though, Alchemy's going to be that little bit better. It's hard to deny. Alchemy doesn't make it S tier, but Alchemy is going to be A tier. Alchemy is going to be very, very good for people. Potions, flasks are in very, very high demand, and especially in terms of things like potions, they're super sought after, and it's going to play into the hands of the gatherers for sure. Anybody that's out there doing their herbalism, getting the herbs, can then be selling their wares to the alchemists who are going to make a killing again. Absolutely. Alchemy tends to be a weird one where you have to min-max your material prices a little bit more. But trust me, if you spend a couple of hours crafting potions and flasks the day before reset to then sell them on reset day, you'll sell them all really quickly, hopefully for a good amount of profit. Alchemy made people millionaires in patch 9.0. I'm going to be honest in saying I didn't expect it to do as well as it did, but it's proving to be a very, very good profession. And for the goblins out there, there's the bonus that you don't really even need to be max level. If you pick this up at level 50, level 51, once you've done your more intro quest for the 7,000th time, Blizzard, please give us a skip, then you might find that you can do some basic stuff with Alchemy. If you are level 60, make sure you've got your Shadestone and you're doing your Shadestone cooldown every day. Shadestones are going to be in high demand again when the raid comes out, as there's usually that one dude that's responsible for bringing the cauldron to the raid, and he's going to want to buy those Shadestones off you on a very regular basis. Lastly, we have engineering. Unfortunately, engineering has seen virtually no love at all in this expansion. There doesn't even appear to have been anything new. Blizzard, please, where's our Blingtron? We want Blingtron, what is it now, 8,000? Unfortunately, engineering, still no love. And unfortunately, archaeology, still not really implemented. We kind of have a fake archaeology in Korthia. There's the new faction, the Archivist's Codex, where it feels very treasure huntery, but it's not directly linked to archaeology, so there's not really much gold to be made from there. Maybe go and farm up some fragments from past expansions, maybe, but there's not a lot of love there anyway. But there we go, boys and girls. That's my Shadowlands profession tier list for focusing on patch 9.1, and of course focusing on a gold making mantra. If you pick your professions based on what they offer you in raids and in Mythic Plus and that sort of stuff, you'd probably put engineering a bunch higher, but for the purpose of gold making, unfortunately, yeah, it's not great. It's not great. But there we go. There's the profession list for patch 9.1. I hope you enjoyed this sort of stuff. Remember to give the video a like if you enjoy it, boys and girls. Subscribe if you're new around here. And very quickly before I leave, I will remind you guys that I've recently opened myself a Patreon. The Patreon is there for you guys that are enjoying the content and wish to support, with some nice little perks and benefits available to you. If you want to become a goblin today, feel free to jump over to patreon.com/Manthieus. You can get yourself access to the monthly live Q&A sessions on Discord, my TSM groups and operations, and going forward a few more little goodies for you as well. But I've been Manthieus, boys and girls. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.